When do you think you'll create an Android phone that's better than an iPhone in every way?
You're not familiar with the Samsung Galaxy S?
I'm familiar with every phone that's running, period, and they're good. The UI, there needs to be some refinements on the UI, I think.
So maybe you should ask your question a little differently. What of our best phone, in your opinion, which is our best phone, and then what are its defects relative to the iPhone, in your opinion?
You want me to ask you that question?
No, I'm asking you that question, because then I can answer your question.
In my opinion, your best phone is the Nexus 1, because it's the purest Android installation, and it doesn't have any additional layers of software on it to mess things up.
So you're saying you don't like the fact that they add stuff?
I hate it. It also makes it difficult from a user experience to know what the Android experience is, I think, to see these on different phones. But it still is missing some touches. I mean, I have the iPhone today. I carry every phone. The iPhone is just there are nuances to it that make it a better device. So when will we see you guys?
Well, we have new versions of our UI coming out in each of the releases. Our policy is to allow the hardware manufacturers to add what they consider to be their value added. And as much as I respect your judgment, and I love the fact that you love the Nexus 1, let me point out that we are shipping a whole lot of phones right now for these unsuspecting people who don't realize they're getting as good a product as the Nexus 1. So it seems to be working. So I don't know what else to say except there's a lot of stuff coming, huge investment now in Android. The partners like the fact that they can add value. Again, I understand your
I think the other thing to look at is just look at the trajectory of where we were a year ago versus where we are today. Look at our market share, look at the feedback from our users, look at the state of the hardware, look at the diversity of the hardware across all of the carriers. So without entering my opinion on where we are today relative to the iPhone, you may have your own, but compare the trajectory of where we were a year ago versus where we are today.
I can't remember the quote I used last. I have the numbers in front of it. It's 60 carriers and 30 countries and 50.
It's 1,000 phones a day.
Could I ask a follow-up to this?
Yeah.
If you look at the trajectory and where you've come, I actually have heard Googlers say this off record to me, or at least not with attribution, that look at us. We've come from behind on Android with a full frontal attack against the iPhone. Is that something that you think on social you can do, or you talk about social as not a full frontal attack on Facebook? It's a different approach. It's maybe a softer approach.
Yeah, they're completely different.
Sometimes it's nice to hear we're going to war and we're going to win.
No, I understand journalists particularly like that model.
We really do, yeah.
And it sells newspapers or blog clicks or what have you. So let me be extremely clear about my view of the iPhone versus Android rivalry. I think it benefits both companies because it increases competition. And I think both companies can do very well. And here's why. It's a simple fact of business. Then you've got two well-funded, and I would argue well-run, in the case of Google's company, as well, very focused companies with a lot of resources behind it. The consumer wins. And they get more choices. And what happens is the other players are hurt. So there's this mentality in the media, which I've encountered in my time at Google, that somehow the competition is negative. But in fact, the competition is most likely positive. We're in a stage where the market is growing very, very dramatically. Right? And I would argue that as the Android tablets come out, of which there will be quite a few, I think, they'll have the same impact on the iPad. Right? The fact that these things become popular and everybody wants them means everybody wins. And I know that sort of doesn't make any sense to most people because they somehow think that one sale is a denied sale to somebody else, but that's not how it works. One person buys one thing, and then the other person goes to the store and has their own opinion, and all of a sudden they're buying something they wouldn't buy otherwise. So to answer your question about the Facebook, you were in an indirect way asking about Facebook, and the answer is it's different. We're not trying to do the same thing. In the Android, remember, Android was purchased by Google well before the iPhone was announced. Android has been at Google for a very long time. And Jill says I have a little bit more time, so.
Could just briefly follow up to what Mike's getting at? Because there is this thinking that Macintosh has done so well in the PC market above a certain price. They're I think they have like 50, 60%, 70% market share above $1,000 laptops, for example. In other words, they get all the margin, they get all the fun stuff. I wonder, do you have concern that Android, which can have very inexpensive models, will become sort of the de facto lower end, and that could even cross over to the iPad and on the tablet front? Is that a...
It's a consequence of our strategy that we'll have more choices, more prices, more margin choices, more vendors than the Apple model. So if you think about it, the Apple model is single sourced. They have one pricing architecture, one brand, it's very cohesive, classic closed system, and in my view, a good one. Right? We have the exact opposite. I think what you're describing is a natural consequence of open systems. We view this as positive. We don't view this as negative. And by the way, you omitted all of the highly priced, incredibly expensive, very high margin Android phones that would occur as well.
Well,
Can I actually
Right,
follow up?
because remember that Android has a lot of power that the iPhone doesn't, and its native operating system, in terms of parallelism and other kinds of things that it can do.
no, I've heard those arguments.
But they're actually true.
I guess my follow-up question is, obviously Google has a complementary business. How much does it matter to you to actually make big margins on Android?
Well, we don't make any money from
Right,
it.
exactly. So,
We make zero, it's free.
right,
That would
so
be the definition of
therefore,
no margin.
therefore the point isn't
Yeah,
to win
Oh, no,
for the sake of Android itself, it's to win for the sake
of
of,
cloud computing.
yeah.
And which you have written quite a bit about. I have been surprised at how important Android is to our business, but for none of the reasons that you all talk about. It's fundamentally because Android is seen as the sort of, I don't know, the representative of the new model of computing. And that people are dying to put their best applications on this sort of open platform. And they really want to move off of the traditional computing platforms. They really do. The speech I gave was called Mobile First. It all has to be, you're going to put your best engineering, your best applications on mobile, and that's true for everybody. And it's true not just in the third world, which is skipping that generation, but also in the first world.